topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Who is January Jones? She is not a young, beautiful, talented actress on Mad Men. She is not an older, gorgeous, exotic dancer from the Johnny Carson Show. She is an author, and she wrote Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, that reached #1 at Amazon.com. She is a reality TV golf personality with World High Stakes Golf televised on HDNet. She is a humorist and winologist expert. She is your featured host today on January Jones Sharing Success Stories. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and listen to Ms. Jones with her eclectic roster of guests as you learn life's lessons. These stories plus sharing equals success. Welcome, and remember, beware, because you are entering the no whining world of January Jones.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a glittery, glowing day. I'm January Jones, and I'd like to welcome you to our podcast. As many of you know, I have a new brand, Glitter Granny. We'll talk about that later in the show. Now, for my listeners, let me ask you a question. Do you know anyone who can make you laugh out loud? Our guest today can do that. Have you ever met someone that you wanted to know more about? Well, our guest from last week is back because I want to hear more of her stories. Can you imagine what it'd be like traveling to 70 different countries? Tell me, do you ever travel alone looking for adventures yourself? Would you like to meet an amazing humorist, one who's been compared to Erma Bombeck? Tell me, have you ever heard of a book entitled You Slept Where? Calamities of a Clumsy Businesswoman. If you can answer yes or maybe to any of these questions, then you are in the right place. And I'd like to welcome you to January Jones sharing senior success stories. So now it's time to rest and relax. Go get some cheese and crackers, and don't forget the wine so you can join us in the no wine zone. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. She, as I said earlier, is a modern day Erma Bombeck. She's done it all. She's climbed Mount Everest, chatted with celebrities, and she's even written a wonderful book about her fabulous adventures. And she's slept in some of the craziest places you'll ever hear about. Along the way, she's learned a lot of lessons, all the while inspiring others. She is the author of You Slept Where, Calamities of a Clumsy Businesswoman. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show today, Brenda Prater Sellers. Hi, Brenda. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, January?
Okay, wonderful to have you back. And just for our listeners' information, can you share with them, you're like out on the town. Where are you coming in from? Tell us where you're at.
I'm coming in from Knoxville, Tennessee, and East Tennessee. It's 71 degrees here. I'm on the 1982 World's Fair side. And as you'll see behind me, that is our sun sphere. And actually, it was on The Simpsons just a few weeks ago. The Simpsons, the cartoons. And they came, Bart Simpson came to Knoxville, and the Sun Sphere was a wig museum. It was a real funny little episode if you're a Simpsons fan. So that's where I'm from today.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, Brenda, did you actually go to the 1982 World's Fair? Do you have any memories of it?
Yes, I do. President Reagan actually came opening day, and
Uh-huh.
I had my son was born in 1982. So I have some very fond memories of the 1982. And matter of fact, Chromographics, which is the company that I was the president of for almost 40 years, we actually made licensed World's Fair products that
Oh,
are still in the museum. There's an actual 1982 World's Fair museum and memorabilia, and our products are in there. We actually made a little miniature sun sphere that's a little magnet that goes on your refrigerator.
oh my gosh. Okay. So that's where the clumsy businesswoman thing comes from, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And you shared with us last week that you have had quite an extraordinary life. I find your life very interesting, along with climbing Mount Everest, which we've already talked about on the last show. You've also shared some of the craziest places that you've slept. And I would like to kind of go through your book chapter by chapter so we can talk about some of the places that you've slept. Before we do that, though, how long did it take you to write your book?
About 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. Well, and it started the book was really going to be like a picture book with all my photographs, because that's really what the story was about. I was trying to photograph to get a prize winning picture on National Geographic on the cover. But I had so many pictures, so I was just going to put the pictures in like a coffee table book. But then people
Mhm.
weren't really into coffee table books anymore. So then that's when the stories began. And then I started writing the stories. And I used a lot of editors and a lot of guidance to, because I'd never written a book before. This is my first book. And then
Uh-huh.
as time went on, I learned that I had editing on top of editing, because I had to have a developmental editing editor, a line editor, a content editor, and all that. So that's why it took probably 2 years of rewriting, um, just rewrite, trying to polish, trying to get it the best that I could.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good number for any book. All of my books have taken at least 2 years. Some of them maybe, 60 years. Now, let's talk about you start off, we've talked about some of these things in the previous show, but some of the things I want to go back and touch on again. Your first chapter is entitled Under the Water.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit about how this chapter happened and
Okay.
you wrote
So
about it.
it was very serendipity. The book is about a 25-year period. And so that first chapter is I'm young, in a bikini, I'm scuba diving, and I met a scuba dive instructor at a party, and he had a class the next day. He was the instructor. And so I signed up for the class. I grew up on the lake, so I could swim, but I just
Uh-huh.
didn't have scuba diving lessons. And so that's where I started with the first chapter, was under the water. And then we fast forward to about the 25, 30-year period, I am
Mhm.
staying at over the water there in San Diego at Crystal Pier.
Uh-huh.
And I'm older, I got arthritis, I'm just a lot older, and I wouldn't be caught dead in a bikini. But that was kind of my arc, so to speak. That the under was under the water, and then life happens, and then I'm staying over the water, because at over the water, instead of scuba diving down under the water like that first chapter, I
Uh-huh.
just pull up in my car and put my Bertha. Bertha's a character in my book, which is my 75-pound Toomey suit bag, which is the size of a small elephant. But you just pull up to the car in the pier, Crystal Pier, and then you just walk into where you stay. You actually are sleeping over the water. it was
Oh,
so much easier. It was so much easier than scuba diving down. It's 30 feet under the water in Florida, and
wow.
only certified scuba divers are allowed to stay there. But I started that. And I had to get a lot of help from the publisher and from the editors, because a lot of people cannot imagine staying underwater. It's hard to fathom, just being under the water and staying
Right.
all night under the water. So that's why I started with that chapter first. So
Well, yeah, that's just fascinating. I would be totally claustrophobic.
yes,
And
well,
then the interesting thing that you also shared with us at the last visit was that you then went into the scuba diving business with your
yes,
husband, Big Ed.
yes.
And yeah, and you did that. Where did you do that? In
Well,
Florida or?
yeah, we would certify people in Florida, or also in our swimming pool in our backyard. We would certify people there too.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. Okay, and then so moving on, the next chapter is entitled With Polar Bears. Now, this has to be a chapter where it's going to get pretty chilly, isn't it?
Yes. Well, that was a bizarre chapter too, because not a lot of people know about that. It's called the Sleeping with the Polar Bear Experience because it's in Canada, and you go out on a rolling tundra. It's a big, like a four-wheel drive tundra, and it hooks up to different like departments, and you sleep in this rolling tundra, and then you see polar bears. It's in the or around in Canada, and I think we saw like 20. I saw like 20 something bears, and part of that story was Big Ed did not go on that one. And he's claustrophobic. We learned after the underwater hotel that he's claustrophobic, so he would not have liked staying. Literally, you sleep with strangers, but you have a bunk. It's like a if you can imagine a school bus with bunks on each side, or like a train, but more like a train, and you have bunks, and then you have your curtain. So the only thing between you and other people is just that curtain. So, but it was a phenomenal experience to see those polar bears, and I was so excited about these polar bears because I thought this will be a photograph I could send into National Geographic. It will
Mhm.
be award-winning photograph with these bears, but the poor bears, January, they were sick and hungry, and it was sad. It was so sad to see these bears, and they have to keep going out further and further, to find food. So it was just kind of a sad. It was a sad experience too to see how that with the global warming and all that, how how that is affecting the polar bears. But I did
Well,
I thought I got one picture of bear, a mama bear, and two cubs. But then the sad story about the end of that chapter is that all my pictures, and I get really bad motion sickness, and I got really motion sick because it's moving on that tundra. But my picture on my tripod, all of my pictures were blurry, or they weren't good, or they just looked like white blobs. My bears looked like white blobs in my pictures. And part of my story is I'm showing my dad, I'm a daddy's girl, and showing my dad, he couldn't believe I stayed underwater, and
uh-huh.
because he's a farmer, he's from the Great Depression. And then when I go stay with polar bears, he cannot believe that I went to this extreme, and it was cold too, to
Yeah.
photograph these polar bears. But the only picture that I got that day was I got a picture of an Arctic fox, and you can see those pictures on my website under chapter 2 of the Arctic fox, and you can see the rolling tundra, you can see the polar bear, the pictures that I'd taken.
Yeah, and sharing this also with our listeners that Brenda and her husband, Big Ed, they're both incredible photographers, and going to their her website is quite an adventure.
Just
The
seeing
sad,
them.
the sad part of that polar bear chapter is that, as you said, they have since become pretty much endangered,
Yeah.
and everyone's just so worried about the polar bears even surviving, and that's a real sad part of the story.
Oh
Yeah,
my
and
God.
then briefly, you talked about sleeping in a silo. Just briefly,
Yes.
we talked about it already, but just touch on it briefly
Okay. So
before our
because
break.
yeah, because my dad's a farmer. He could not believe that I was on a business trip and in Ohio, and I stayed overnight in a silo in Ohio, And he could not believe that. And that is where the title comes from, is you slept where? You slept where? He could not believe that I slept in a silo and paid to sleep in a silo. And we have a silo in our backyard because we live on a farm. Our family is like 9 generations on the same land. And my dad has a century farm, which means he and his family have been farming on that same land for 100 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. No. And I bet you could ask him. I bet he never slept in a silo, did he?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. But it was a beautiful, it, because of it was nothing like the silo we have in our backyard, which is, you put grain in there, for cattle. But it was nothing like that. It was a beautiful facility. They had done such a wonderful job. It was the, Quaker Oats silo, and it's where they made the Quaker Oats, and it was their manufacturing facility, and it's where the oak stayed. And they had a lot of nostalgic posters and pictures that decorated the walls. It was a beautiful facility. I was just shocked that it was so beautiful. I felt like Cinderella because it was not at all what I thought it was going to be like. And my room was round, so it was like I was sleeping in a bowl of cereal. It was just a round little room, and I could see out. I had a window and a sliding glass door, so that was good that I could actually see out. It
Out
was
of curiosity, how many rooms or how many beds were in the silo? How many guests could they accommodate?
I'm trying to think. That's actually in there. It may be close to 200, and they have since. And this is why I live my life like every day might be our last, because people cannot even stay in that now. They've closed it down for only students that are going to college there. So it's not even open to the public anymore. So I was so blessed to have stayed there and photographed it and been able to experience that, because I wouldn't be able to stay there anymore.
Well, I have certainly never slept. I've never slept in a silo, but that's just the beginning, listeners. Wait to hear all the other crazy places she's slept. But we're going to take a break, and I want to share with you something that I've just written, Living and Dying Without Whining, 80 Years of Magical Moments.
Producing, Living and Dying Without Whining, a memoir. 80 Years of Magical Moments, written by January Jones. Patriotic moments, revealing moments, thrilling and comforting moments, sassy moments, the age of Aquarius, exciting moments, reality moments, career moments, touching moments, with many, many more magical moments. Available at Amazon.com and Audible.com.
Welcome back with my guest, Brenda Prater Sellers. Brenda, would you also, let's do a plug right now for your book and for your website.
Okay, so the title is You Slept Where? Calamities of a Clumsy Businesswoman. And the website is www.brenda, and that's just like it sounds, Brenda. Prater is the second word, Prater, Sellers, and that's S as in Sam, ELLERS.com.
Okay, perfect. And check that out. You'll enjoy it. Okay, now after you got out of the silo, and I keep thinking, oh, got yourself cleaned up or finished eating your cereal, your next chapter is you slept in the belly of a dog?
Yes, that's in Idaho, and that is the Dog Bark Inn. And it's a wonderful facility because you literally sleep in the belly of the dog. The dog is 30 feet tall, and then you go to the bathroom in the back of his tail. So you'll have to check the website out to see that. But that was because Big Ed was not happy about staying under the water. And I
Uh-huh.
did that for his anniversary present. So
Oh.
for my anniversary present, he literally sent me away to the dog to the doghouse. That's where I went. I used frequent flyer points to fly to there because it was such an unusual property. And you're just driving along, and all of a sudden you see this big 30-foot dog beagle. It's a beagle dog,
Mhm.
and it's like an Airbnb. And that story is that I had borrowed Big Ed's camera and was his tripod, and that's something you don't do as a photographer. I reference it to it'd be like you would never use anyone else's mascara. Your tripod's pretty personal to you. But I borrowed
Yeah.
his tripod to photograph that big dog, Toby the dog, because you could see just like with this sun sphere. I wanted to see how small I look next to the big dog. Well, as I was out photographing that, I lost the little gizmo that holds your camera onto the tripod, which is
Uh-huh.
a big no-no because without that little gizmo, there
Yeah.
is no tripod. And he had a really nice tripod, and I have a duct tape tripod. But anyway, I think, oh dear, what am I going to do? I didn't tell him. But I thought, well, I had read Dale Carnegie's book, To Stop Worrying and Start Living. So I just
Uh-huh.
started eating in that big dog because they had doggy snacks. They had like little dog treats. And so they had snacks for me, and then they had breakfast the next morning. So I ate all my food that night. And then part of my character is Bertha, which is my big Bertha suit bag. And as I was getting up, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning to make my way back to the airport to catch my flight back home. Big
Mhm.
Bertha, and like I said, she's 70, 75 pounds, depending on how full she is. She fell down the stairs like Humpty Dumpty, like boom, 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 all the way down the steps.
Uh-huh.
And right where she fell, it was like that little gizmo was right there. So it's like Bertha saved the day by helping me find that little gizmo from Ed's tripod. Because otherwise, the property was so big. They had like carved figurines and sculptures all around the yard, and I was
Uh-huh.
all over the yard photographing that. So there would be no way I would have ever found it if it hadn't been for Bertha falling down the steps, saving the day. And then he never really knew until that book came out that I'd borrowed his tripod.
Okay. So the questions I have for this chapter, Bertha, now she flies with you?
For what?
Bertha flies with you when you're
Yes,
traveling.
Bertha. Yeah, that's my suit bag. And her picture's actually on the website too. You can see her. She's white. She's white. I stayed in a caboose in Arkansas, and she was so big and so wide. She was too wide for me to put her in that train. She was so wide.
Okay. And now, how many people at a time could sleep in the Beagle dog?
Just one family. It's only one family.
One family.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the dog. Well, where you stay, you go up steps, and then it opens. The belly of the dog opens with sliding
Oh,
glass doors, and that is your living quarter. So the bedroom is right there. The bathroom, as I said earlier, was in the back of the tail of the dog and the rear end of the dog, and then in the little towards the front, it's like a little kind of like a little kitchenette, and then in the very top of the nose, it has where children could climb up and get
oh,
in the climb in the little cubby hole in the nose of the dog.
okay. Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, how do you go about finding these places? I mean,
Well, it seems in my business, I did a lot of traveling with my business in the automotive aftermarket. I was with a manufacturing company. That was my real job. And once I started staying at bizarre places, everybody else would say, "Oh, have you done this?" or "Have you stayed at Lizzie Borden's?" or "Have you heard about the big dog in Idaho?" And it got to be a challenge that's why I started making my list and like, "Oh, I haven't been there before," and it was a real challenge to try to find different places. And then, but on that particular big dog, Big Ed found the big dog, and that was just the perfect thing for him to send me. He was still pouting because of the scuba diving experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So he literally did send me away to the dog house.
Yeah, this ought to be interesting. After we get through going through your book, I'll probably want to have Big Ed on and ask him if he's getting ready to. I'd like to have him write a book and hear his side of every story
Right.
that you're telling.
Well, he has his own little fan club. He has a big Ed's fan club with little buttons. So yes.
Well, I can see why. I think I'm getting ready to sign up and become a member. Um, these adventures you have are just so extraordinary because they're so unique. And what I love about it in your book is that you list at the back, there's like a list where you can check off all the places that you haven't gone yet. And I went through that list, and I think I came up upon the fact that I had been to 4 of the places that you had listed.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything.
Well, and I think the listeners need to know too that in that book, it's just a little bitty. The only way that any place got into that book is something had to happen. If something didn't happen, like me, falling or dropping my camera, or something had to happen to be, or I fell or tripped or something. It didn't make it to the book. So there's a ton of stuff. I mean, I could do a whole series of books of other places that I've stayed. I went through a whole list of staying at, I went to all the president's homes, and I went through all the, like strong women. I went through a whole phase of those type of places too, or historical homes. So there's a lot more that's not even, that's just a small little, even though it's like 13 chapters, and there's one chapter that has a few other places in there, but something had to happen, or it wouldn't even be in that book.
Just out of curiosity, how many days a year are you out traveling? I'm traveling alone.
Well, right now I'm not traveling with. I'm retired from Chromographics, and then yes, but it would depend on the trade shows that we had, and a lot of times I would just do a trade show, or if I'm out traveling with for business, I would that's most of that in that particular book is where I am there for business, like the chapter 5 in the Grand Canyon. I was there for a trade show in Las Vegas, and I decided, I finally, after years, tried to get a reservation to go down in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And I just stayed the weekend. So it really just depended on how much business I had and how many trade shows I had as to where it, some days I would be out, and then some days I'd be in the office for, weeks at a time. So it wasn't that I was out every week or a set schedule. It was just depending on, your trade shows, that's already carved in stone. So that's whenever those shows are, it's when you schedule around that.
Yeah. And it's just wonderful the way you and Big Abe make these plans, where you always find these unique places that no one has ever been to or even heard of. So this book is for anyone who wants to do some amazing trips that are a little out of the ordinary. Yes. This is your guide to travel America for sure. We're going to take a break and hear about my latest enterprise, Glitter Granny. And when we come back, we'll visit and hear all about when Brenda went to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Welcome to Glitter Granny Gifts to Give or to Get. Hosted by January Jones, aka Glitter Granny, and her Golden Doodle Ginger Ale. If you're a granny who wants to glitter and glow, it's time to join us for a sparkling shopping experience that will be unique and so very special. Whenever you need a spectacular gift, Granny will help you find it. Along with gifts for family, friends, and holidays, there are even glitter gifts for coworkers, in-laws, doctors, and you can even find something for your friend who has everything. If you need a really good gag gift, you'll find it here. Hats, canes, shoes, accessories. Now, just go to glittergranny.com and check it out.
Yes, I hope you join me at Glitter Granny. When you sign up at Glitter Granny, you can download a free copy of my best-selling book, Thou Shalt Not Whine, the 11th Commandment, from Amazon. And all of these products that I'm promoting are also from Amazon, which makes it nice and easy and convenient to go shopping. Okay, now, Brenda, I want to hear about your time at the Grand Canyon. Now, that is one place that I've also been to.
Well, and the funny thing about that chapter, it's the only chapter in the book that I wrote as it was happening. Most of the other chapters, I was remembering it. But that one particular chapter, and that chapter almost didn't make it into the book because I'm like, well, it's too normal. It's not out of the norm. But what is funny, people that are animal people, like the horse people, mule people, they really liked that chapter. And a couple of the editors said that was probably my best written chapter because they could smell, they could see the colors and all that. So it was kind of funny how that almost didn't make it because the funny thing about that, Big Ed, that was one of the ones he was with me. But as I'm going down on the back of a mule in rummage sale boots, I didn't really have cowboy boots. And so I bought some pair of boots that were $12 rummage sale because I had to wear boots down to the Grand Canyon. And so as I'm doing that, and it's a steep trail, Big Ed, he is on the balcony of the El Salvador Hotel, ordering room service. He's in air condition. I'm on a sweaty mule. And part of that story is that I was with several other riders, and those riders, they're actually riders. I'm a motorcycle rider, but they were horse riders, and they were making fun of my vest because I had a vest on, but on my vest carried all of my junk food and all my candy and all my and my Mountain Dew. And so they're like, "Oh, we didn't know we was going to go fly fishing because it was a fly fishing." But the funny thing about that was that when we get halfway down there, I shared my candy with everybody because everybody was wanting candy or chocolate.
Okay, yeah, they were probably needing to have a little sugar left.
Yes, that was funny. And I had M&Ms. As soon as I opened that, I could hear them say, "Oh my God, she's got M&Ms, peanut M&Ms," because I could see the pack. I could see the pack.
Gosh.
So that was
Well,
funny.
when we were living in Arizona, we lived 3 hours from the Grand Canyon. So that was mandatory whenever anyone would come to visit us, that we'd take them on the train and do a train ride up to the Grand Canyon, and then usually spend the night at the hotel, this fabulous hotel, and then come back the next day. We didn't make our guests go down the canyon on mules. And I can relate to Big Ed staying in the hotel, and that's probably what a lot of people would do. That was just such a beautiful place to visit and to spend time there. So then you talked briefly on the last show a little bit about the Ice Hotel chapter, and
Yes.
just kind of summarize that a little bit for our listeners, okay?
Well, that was a serendipity story as well because I was doing business, and I normally wouldn't be in January in Canada, but our sales staff was different parts of the country or out of the country, and so I agreed to help fill in for another person, and so I did some training with our sales reps, and it was in January in Canada before the buying season, and on USA or Good Morning America, I had that hotel was just opening, so I had booked that and we were one of the first 100 people to stay in that
Really?
ice hotel. But Big Ed was flying in. I was there working, and he flew in over the weekend. He thought we were staying at the Chateau de whatever that's called there in Quebec, which is a beautiful. There's a picture of that on the website too. Beautiful
Hotel.
hotel, and a lot of royalty people had stayed there, and I ended up staying at the cheapest room we could find, and even that wasn't that cheap. But
Uh-huh.
we were going to stay there. That's where he thought we were staying. But I canceled that night at this really nice castle and stayed at the Ice Hotel. He wasn't happy about that either, because they provided parkas and shoes, like
Uh-huh.
it was kind of like a skiing attire.
Yeah.
Uh, he didn't, his gloves, wouldn't fit him, and all that. So he wasn't real happy about that. But the sponsor was Absolute Vodka. So that he was excited about that. And you sleep on a bed of ice, but you have a fur pallet, or
Oh,
like a pelt, and you have sub-zero sleeping bags. So, but
uh,
if you can't stand it, or if you wimp out, you can go next door and sleep at the Airbnb. But we
oh,
paid to stay, so but he didn't like that either. That was not his favorite thing, but it was a beautiful facility. You would not believe the chandeliers and all the ice carvings. It was just
yeah.
beautiful. It was so magical. It was really magical, and that was a. And part of that is that I had just binge watched. I don't know if you've ever watched, or your listeners have ever watched Dexter. And
Yeah.
Dexter is a serial killer, but he's a cute serial killer that kills
Yeah.
bad people. And so I just binge watched. Well, I thought that I was being tortured by Dexter because I was frozen. I was in like this big bubble wrap, which is my sleeping bag, and it was. I woke up and it was so cold, January, that my nose hairs froze. And you can crunch my nose hairs because it was so.
Oh my gosh.
But that was an amazing experience, because they move that around. They pack it up at the end of the season, and then they store it somehow, and then they build it again at different places. So that was really remarkable to be there the first 100 of the first year.
Okay, wow. And then and how many people could sleep in this ice
How many?
hotel?
Well, the people that were there when I was there,
Uh-huh.
there was a couple from New Jersey, and they got drunk at the glass or the ice bar. It's literally made of ice. You sit on ice. You drink your vodka out of a ice, literally shaped ice glass.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And a family from Florida, and that was about it. It was only at the time capacity was maybe 4 or 5 couples at the time, because each family or each little group had a separate room,
Yeah.
that in a curtain you'd have also a curtain on that, but you would have your own ice bed.
Okay. And so you had to, so I mean, and then this is only in January or in the winter months that this is
Yeah,
available, right?
and I think it would go from like January to the end of February or the 1st of March.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
still
Okay.
it's still really cold in Canada by that time. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it can get cold there. I grew up in Michigan, so we were right
oh
across the
yeah.
border from Canada. Yeah, you could have some pretty cold days. So then going on to your next chapter, at an airport. Now we're an airline family, so I
Oh
can't tell you the times that we've fallen asleep sitting in chairs at airports. And a few times we've stayed in airport hotels, but that sounds almost too normal for you. So tell us about your airport story.
Okay, so and part of that story is, and a thread throughout this whole book is that my parents are getting worse. They think my dad's got a brain tumor, and
Uh-huh.
so as the story goes on, I'm doing all these things, running businesses, raising kids. My parents, my dad, they thought he had a brain tumor, and so in this particular chapter, he had an infection in his leg, and he's having to go to the hospital every day, and I ended up taking him like every day for this. He had a wound in his leg, and
Uh-huh.
so then I flew out the next day, and in that what I was trying to do in that chapter is that people that travel for a living, everybody thinks it's so glamorous. Oh, you're traveling, but when you're traveling and you're working, most of the time you just see the airport and the place of business, and then back on the
Yeah.
plane. So you know how that is. And that chapter is I tried to put the non-traveler, the people that maybe read but don't travel. That is the warrior of the people that live in the airports. And in Atlanta, they actually, and I had flown in and out. I'm a 2 million miler just on Delta Airlines alone. And I
Wow.
have flown in and out of Atlanta for so long, but I never knew about this Minute Suites. And it was so amazing because you could actually go in, and it's a great place to work. Or if you've got a long flight, this particular time I'd been, taking my dad to the doctor. I was exhausted. I had this big meeting coming up. Big Ed was sick the night before, and I was exhausted. And I saw this place, and I had like maybe 30 minutes. But the story about that is that I couldn't go to sleep. I get there, and you know how you toss and you turn, and it's a whole little scene. I try to get. They have a bed that you can stretch out. Well, then I had to take my shoes off, and then I thought, well, I'm gonna get my skirt wrinkled. So then I took my skirt off, and then I tried to get lay on my left side. Well, I had clanging jewelry. That mess, I had to get up, take it off. My earrings. Mama calls, and at this time, my mama is showing signs of dementia. So she calls, and and I'm paying by the minute to stay in this Minute Suite. You literally pay by the minute. So anyway, and there's a cute little scene in there that I finally get. I think I sleep for like 3 minutes, maybe of my 30 minutes. I finally get some sleep. But what I didn't notice was that when I finally did fall asleep, my mascara stuck to my eyes, and and it was a funny scene because I didn't realize I was such a hurry that I think my skirt's on the inside out, didn't notice it. My jacket's wrong side out, didn't know it. And then I had these big circles in my eyes because my mascara ran. So, and there was a couple of scenes on the airplane. The middle seat passenger, you have the dreaded middle seat passenger. And so there's a couple, he looked like Chris Farley, if you remember who he was. He
Oh,
always
yeah.
so he was a comedian. He was laughing, and it was the only time that I've landed where the oxygen mask actually deployed, and that was the first and hardest time I've ever had that to happen. But
Wow.
anyway,
Oh.
that was I was trying to put the reader into the life of a traveling person that travels for a living. And it's not all that it's cracked up, up to be. When especially you've got other things you've got to, you're worried about people at home, you're worried about your parents, but you still, you got work to do. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I've been through Atlanta several times myself, and I've seen these situations. And so you could just rent a room for 30 minutes?
Yes, 30 minutes. Yeah, you pay by the minute. You pay by the minute. So.
Oh, okay. Now,
And they have,
do they also have showers and?
yeah, not at the time. I was one of the first ones that stayed there too. At the time, they didn't even have the bathroom there. You had to and that was kind of not so good because you had to go down the hallway to go to the ladies' room. But then now I believe that they have expanded that. And before you couldn't take food into the room, that they didn't allow
Oh,
food. But now I think that they sell snacks. I was just in there a couple of months ago and noticed that they sell snacks. And so it's a little bit more, they've added to that for people that need snacks or need a place to go. And I'm not sure about showers. I think maybe they have added showers since then. It would be a good idea
yeah.
because that way, especially if you've got an international flight or your flight gets delayed or something too. So.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's incredible. That's wonderful. I've seen these things I've never done. This is another thing that you've done that I've never done. My list is getting longer and longer. And I know you in your book, you encourage people to make up their travel bucket list, don't you?
Yes, because I think that, and even if you just want to, some people just enjoy going to the lake, or some people just enjoy going to their house on the beach, or whatever I just encourage people just to live life and put it on your list. If there is a place that you want to go, that's my strong suggestion and inspiration is do it now while you can, because as you get older, there's a traveling issue. You maybe don't feel as well, and the
Mhm.
mobility issues. And just do it. So many people like wait till they retire to go travel places, and I did not do that. I've traveled my whole life, and because I think if you wait till you're older, then
Yeah.
maybe you can't do it. There's no way Big Ed could even go down on that mule, and he didn't want to do it anyway back then. Back then, but now it's there's no way you could go down there. So
Yeah.
do it while you can. Do it while you can.
Absolutely. And being from an airline family, we've been blessed and fortunate to
Yeah.
be able to travel
So
all over
and
the
on
world.
your book, so when you say airline family, were you a flight attendant or what was your airline? Because I just got your book. Thank you. Um,
Okay. Oh, yes. Yes, I was. I flew for Eastern Airlines, which probably a lot of people don't even remember.
I
And
do.
then
I do.
I flew in 1963, and it was one of the major airlines, and I was based in Miami and also New York. Incredible. I had a fabulous time, but that was a time when stewardesses were considered like it was very glamorous.
Oh yes, yes. It's
And
hard
it
work
was
though, wasn't it? So I'm looking forward because as being I'm a kindred spirit to a road warrior like you are, so I know I'm going to enjoy reading this.
Oh, good, good. Yes, and good. I thank you for giving me that plug. I did enjoy writing about that. Also, I wrote about some paranormal psychic experiences that I've
Oh,
had through the years. I wrote about going to Catholic school. That was wonderful memories, some good, some bad, some
mm-hmm,
good, bad, and ugly.
mm-hmm,
And I kind of, like you, I kind of tried to write about things that I've done that most other people probably haven't had a chance to do.
right.
One of the things was my husband and I, we were invited to go onto an aircraft carrier. And we flew out on an aircraft carrier, and we landed on an aircraft carrier, and we spent the night on the USS Carl Vinson.
You
And
slept where? You slept where?
we said, this could be a chapter for your book.
So you
And
actually slept on the aircraft carrier?
yes, we
You actually
slept
slept.
overnight on the aircraft carrier,
Oh,
and
that's
we got
awesome.
to
Now, see,
meet.
I haven't done that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we got to meet all the crew, and the captain had us for a meal, and we got it was like 17 stories. So this was when I was younger, and all we did was climb ladders, 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 up and down, up and down. And then I spotted this fabulous elevator, very large. And I said, well, who gets to use this elevator? Because I was thinking I would like to use it. And the answer was that the elevator is used only for
Oh,
airplanes to go up and
oh,
down.
yes,
And
yes.
there's one person who gets to use it when they visit, and that's the President of the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was fun to share. That's kind of one of your chapters.
Yeah.
This has been great. And we're going to have you back as soon as we can and talk some more and finish your book up with our listeners. And thank you so much for visiting with us today, Brenda, and especially sharing the Tennessee World's Fair 1982. We'd like to thank all of our listeners and our amazing guests today. Remember, my dear friends, I hope you've enjoyed our show and share it with everyone you know. We've tried to be informative and inspiring today. Next Thursday, we'll be live at 3 p.m. right here. So now, thank you for entering the No Wine Zone. And we look forward to seeing you. We must remember to stop whining and then start smiling. And if that doesn't work, then you can just start eating chocolate. Or if you're Brenda, you can eat M&Ms. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and be sure to keep on glittering and glowing until we meet again.
We want to thank you for listening to January Jones Sharing Success Stories. Always remember Ms. Jones' personal mantra, if you can think it, you can do it. That's what all of our guests have done with their lives, and so can you. You are the ultimate success coach in your own life. All you need to do will be to start sharing your own story with your family and friends. We hope that our guest stories will encourage you to explore an equation in your future that will combine your creativity plus connecting with others will enable you to be successful too. Always remember, your passion plus your purpose will equal prosperity as you explore the wonderful world of January Jones.